The results are in. Oakland A's of the 80s or Oakland A's of the 70s?
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I am your host, Booney. That's right, one name. Episodes will drop Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. That's Oakland time, Vegas time, and Sacramento time. Whether you are on your way to work, driving back to work, or listening casually during the day, this is the place for A's fans to get the latest game breakdowns, team news, and more. Thank you for making Locked On A's your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. And please hit that subscribe button wherever you are following the show. I am from the Bay Area, and I've been a die-hard A's fan since 1981. I'm here to bring you a real fan's take. This is where the passion of the fans take center stage. Today's Locked On A's is brought to you in part by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Before I get into the results, which I am sure everybody has been waiting for, let me explain to you what I used in order to determine which era is better. As you know, as I explained yesterday, each era was given a total of 13 players. You had 9 hitters, 3 starting pitching, and 1 relief pitcher. I announced each team yesterday, and I will tell you what each player is ranked in each particular category I used. We will tally up the points based on the rankings and points associated with it to give you a final score and end the debate on which era was better. To conclude, we are bringing you a new State of the BOONION today to discuss how I felt the test went, how I felt the results were, and if I feel it was accurate or not. To start, what metrics did I use in order to calculate a winner? Let's start with the hitters. The first category was wins above replacement, often referred to as WAR, for the regular season. This category was weighted the strongest. Next, World Series OPS. The third category is League Championship Series OPS. And finally, OPS and OPS Plus, which I combined into one category. And I'll explain each category as I get into it. I took the 3-year average of a player from 1972 to 1974 and from 1988 to 1990. In a couple cases, there was only 2 years where I needed to calculate. For example, Dave Parker played with the A's for only 2 years. I took those averages and ranked the players from 1 to 18. I took the top 8 players and assigned them points based on their ranking in the weighted category. Let me use Rickey Henderson as an example so you can better understand. In the 4 categories I used, Rickey ranked out to be number 1 in all 4 categories. In wins above replacement, I weighted it as a 10-point category. This means first place would get 80 points since I'm only taking the top 8, 10 times 8, right? Second place, 70. Third place, 60, and so on with the ace spot getting 10 points. If you ranked 9 through 18, you got 0 points. You were not included. For World Series OPS, that category was weighed as an 8-point category. You guessed it, 8 times 8 for first place, 64 points, all the way down to 8th place, which received 8 points. The third category was LCS, League Championship Series OPS, is a 6-point category, and OPS and OPS Plus, which I combined as one, is a 4-point category. For pitchers, it was somewhat similar. I used wins above replacement, World Series ERA, ALCS ERA, and ERA Plus as one category. And they were weighed the same as the hitters. Let's get into what these categories and metrics actually mean. First, wins above replacement, often referred to as WAR. WAR is a sabermetric statistic, and its main objective is to summarize everything a player does for his team in just one stat. It takes hitting, base running, fielding, throwing, everything. In other words, how valuable is a player to their team? Here's a good way to look at it. If you were to throw a below average player at a particular position, their WAR would be 0. Fangraphs has a chart that is a good reference. An individual with a WAR of 1 to 2 would be considered a role player. 2 to 3, a solid starter. 3 to 4, a good player. 4 to 5, an all-star. 5 to 6, a superstar. And 6 plus, an MVP. Let's take a look at the A's, for example. J.J. Bleday had a wins above replacement of 2.2. According to the chart, a solid starter, which I agree with. Lawrence Butler, 3.0. According to the chart, a good player, which I agree with. Brett Rooker, 5.1. A superstar, which I agree with. Now let's look at some of baseball's superstars participating in the World Series. Aaron Judge, 11.2. Shohei Ohtani, 9.1. Juan Soto, 8.1. Now, it's not always just hitting. It's literally everything. For example, Matt Chapman with the San Francisco Giants was ranked number 14 in all of baseball with a wins above replacement of 5.4. And he didn't exactly tear it up at the plate this year, but his overall game was excellent. He was a high-level fielder. He ran the bases well, and yeah, he did hit. Like all statistics, it's a tool, not a rule. But wins above replacement, for the most part, in my opinion, is the most important. The second and third categories fall in basically the same as far as how you would look at it statistically wise. World Series OPS and League Championship Series OPS. Now, I went through OPS in yesterday's show, and remember, OPS on base percentage plus slugging percentage equals OPS. Now, what's OPS plus? OPS plus, which I'm using in the fourth category, combining it with OPS. And the best way to explain OPS plus is using a golf analogy. For example, if two golfers went out to play at different times and different locations, golfer one goes out and shoots a 72, and the course is easy, wide open, no trees, no water, and there isn't a cloud in the sky. Golfer two goes out and shoots a 77, but he plays with winds running around 40 miles per hour, trees, water everywhere, it's cold. You can't really come to the conclusion that golfer one is better because he shot a low score. And that's what OPS plus is. OPS plus adjusts for the size of the ballpark. Is the wind blowing in? Is the wind blowing out? Any external factors contribute to the OPS plus. Now that we have that all settled, let's see how these two teams fared up next. Today's Locked On A's is brought to you in part by FANDUEL. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FANDUEL, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. We got Thursday night football tonight. Minnesota Vikings at the Los Angeles Rams. And on Monday night, I hate to remind you again, I gave you two simple winners. Baker Mayfield, more than touchdowns. Derrick Henry, more than yards. Okay, Vikings at Rams. I think it's going to be a track meet. I like Stafford, more in passing yards. And I like Sam Darnold, more in passing yards. Too easy, simple. You are welcome. The moment we have all been waiting for. Let's get into it. First category for the hitters, wins above replacement. First place, 80 points, goes to the 88-90 Oakland Athletics. Rickey Henderson had a wins above replacement of 7.05. Second place goes to Reggie Jackson. He had a wins replacement of 6.4. Third place, Sal Bando at 5.7. Fourth place, who played with the Athletics only for 2 years, the 73 season and the 74 season. Center fielder, Billy North, wins above replacement at 5.6. Fifth place, we remember this name, Hindu Dave Henderson, who had a WAR of 5.2. Sixth place, Bert Campaneris, 5.1. Seventh place, Jose Canseco. He had a wins replacement at 5 even. And eighth place, Joe Rudy, who had a wins replacement of 4.4. Notables, Mark McGuire in 9th, Carney Lansford in 10th, Walt Weiss at 11. After category 1, we have 1972-74 with a 220 point to 140 point lead over 88-90. Let's get to category number 2, which is World Series OPS, which is an 8-point category. Ranking number 1 with a 2-year average over 89 and 90, Rickey Henderson with an enormous 1.265 in the 89 World Series and the 90 World Series averaged together. Number 2, Reggie Jackson, who had a .993 OPS. Coming in third was Dave Henderson with a .927. Fourth place, Joe Rudy, .774. Fifth place, Darren Johnson, played in the 73 and the 74 World Series, was the DH, had a big 73 World Series OPS of .764. Sixth place, Gene Tenace. We all remember his memorable performance in the 72 World Series, winning the MVP. He had an OPS averaged over 3 years in the World Series of .743. Seventh place, Carney Lansford. And in eighth place, Dave Parker. Notably missing, Canseco, with the exception of his very first at bat ever in the World Series in 88. He didn't do too much. Canseco came in 11th. 9th place was Bert Campaneris. 10th place, Tony Phillips. 72 through 74 took that category as well by a score of 152 to 136. This puts our score at 372 to 276. 72 to 74 has a commanding lead going into League Championship Series OPS. I have a feeling the score is going to get a lot closer, considering the 88 through 90 A's were 12-1 in League Championship Series, maybe the most dominant team of all time when it came to American League Championship Series. Let's take a look. First place, no surprise, Rickey Henderson with a 2-year average in the ALCS of 1.10. Tied for second place, Carney Lansford and Jose Canseco with a .918 OPS. Next up, Mark McGwire, who had a .809 OPS. In fifth place, Bert Campaneris with a .795 OPS. Sixth, Dave Henderson, .789 OPS. Sal Bando in seventh with a .774. And Ray Fosse bringing up the rear with a .724 OPS. Let's take a look at the updated standings. And like I suspected, 88 through 90 won the category 174 to 42. They had the first place guy, second place, third place, fourth place, and sixth place. This gives 1988 to 1990 a commanding 450 to 412 lead going into OPS and OPS plus for the regular season. Surprise, surprise. Rickey is leading that category. Canseco came in 2. Reggie, number 3. McGwire, number 4. Joe Rudy, number 5. Sal Bando, 6. Dave Henderson, 7. And Gene Tennis, 8. And again, the 88 to 90 team takes that category, 88 to 56. And our updated score at this point is 538 to 470, 1988 to 1990 in the lead. But we all know the backbone of the 72 to 74 teams was their pitching. Can they make up this type of deficit? Let's check it out. First category, wins above replacement for pitchers. Number 1, wins above replacement for the Oakland A's, Jim Catfish Hunter. 2, Dave Stewart. 3, Bob Welsh. 4, crafty lefty Kenny Holtzman. 5, the Eck, Dennis Eckersley. 6, Mike Moore. 7, Vita Blue. And 8th, Raleigh Fingers. 88 to 90 again dominated that category, 205 to 155. But the 72 to 74 teams were made in the World Series. Let's see what they do here with World Series ERA. First place, Raleigh Fingers. Second, Catfish Hunter. Third, Ken Holtzman. Fourth, Dave Stewart. Fifth, Mike Moore. Sixth, Bob Welsh. Seventh, Vita Blue. And eighth, Dennis Eckersley. 72 to 74 came back 184 to 104 in that category going into League Championship Series ERA. Number 1, Dennis Eckersley. 2, Mike Moore. 3, Ken Holtzman. 4, Dave Stewart. 5, Raleigh Fingers. 6, Catfish Hunter, 7, Vita Blue, and bringing up the rear, Bob Welsh. That category, again, went to 88 to 90. Finally, ERA and ERA plus for the regular season. Number 1, The Eck. 2, Raleigh Fingers. 3, Ken Holtzman. 4, Catfish Hunter. 5, Dave Stewart. 6, Bob Welsh. 7, Vita Blue. 8, Mike Moore. The 72 to 74 team won that category. Unfortunately, it was not enough. 88 to 90 ends up winning 1,037 to 979. Stay tuned. Coming up next, the state of the Boonion. I'm going to tell you if I feel that these results were accurate and how I feel in general about the outcome. Today's episode of Locked On A's is brought to you in part by GameTime. GameTime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. As the football season hits its midway point, the Niners are gearing up for the playoffs. And what's better than to check out some high-intensity NFL football? Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets and more with GameTime Picks. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create your account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, low price, guaranteed. When I put this together, deep inside, I wanted the 72 to 74 team win. I felt the metrics I used and how I weighted each category was a fair representation on how each team would fare against each other. Baseball has always been a game of numbers, patterns, and analytics, now more than ever. Critical decisions in games are being made by computers, simply being conveyed by the manager. And in many circumstances, the analytics have proven to be right, maybe more times than not. Let's be honest, the data analysis in sports today has created a lot of jobs. And in order to keep these jobs, those in charge must manipulate the numbers to tell a narrative that supports the data they are presenting. I am sure in the regular season, the 80s era team would beat the 70s era team, probably 60% of the time. That 80s era team was a monster. There's no question about it. They would probably even possibly take a playoff series. We saw how successful they have been in the ALCS. Now, if everything is on the line, where you have to lean on your brother, a brother you started playing with since you moved from Kansas City to Oakland, where no one thinks much of you, and you have had to show toughness, grit, and heart that analytics and data cannot measure. Don't get me wrong, that 80s era had some toughness. It had some grit, but they didn't have the 70s era type of grit. They didn't have the 70s era type of toughness. They didn't have that 70s era type of heart. Things analytics have zero clue about or cannot measure whatsoever. Now, if each era faced off against each other, the 70s versus the 80s, and everything was on the line, I don't think the 80s era would win an inning, let alone a game. They wouldn't have a chance in hell in beating that 70s team. Thank you for making Locked On A's your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every aspect of the playoff picture. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'll see you tomorrow.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.